Hey everyone. I promise this isn't as weird as it looks. I just like making my own Godzilla movies. Speaking of Godzilla movies, have you seen Minus One yet? I've been a lifelong Godzilla fan since way back when my parents first rented me a handful of them on VHS from the library. I was instantly hooked, loving every minute of monster action and horrific English dubs. And really, there hasn't been an era of Godzilla that I haven't enjoyed. That's not to say I love every movie. Godzilla vs. Hedorah and Godzilla vs. Biollante, for example, don't really get rewatched by me often. But whether it's the allegorical original, the goofier sequels, or the grittier reboots, I generally find something to appreciate. Even the American ones. Except that one. Minus One is, without a doubt, one of the darkest entries in the series. Packed with deeper meaning like the 1954 original, though not quite as scary as 2016's Shin Godzilla. Minus One feels like a perfect balance between the two in terms of tone. The version of Godzilla in this movie feels like an unstoppable force of nature. He's easily one of the most resilient iterations ever, and makes no attempt to avoid conflict. He's big, he's strong, and even if he doesn't eat you, he sure as hell will kill you. But as is most often the case, he's not the star of the show. Not really. G-Dog is the obstacle, the opposing force against which humanity has to unite. In this case, Japanese veterans who have only just endured the horrors of war. And while I'm sure these next words will cause some viewers to squeal in terror, Godzilla Minus One is a World War II era character drama. Well, damn. Hey there, YouTube viewers, it's your favorite irritable person of two dimensions here to announce I've got merch! That's right, you can now find my lovable lopsided head on t-shirts, posters, shower curtains, and more! The talented Emma Evans now sells Baffled Buffoon merch on her Redbubble store, and every buffoonish purchase helps support my channel. To celebrate the release of this video, you can even find a truly badass design featuring Baffzilla. And while you're browsing, check out Emma's own designs. I fully recommend this particular Resident Evil shirt since I actually own it and it's nice, vivid, and comfy. And I usually don't even wear clothes, so check it all out and thank you for your time. Think of it like this. People, myself included, complained that the 2014 American Godzilla featured only about 7 minutes of Big G screen time and the rest was too focused on the human characters. But that's not because it's inherently bad to focus on the humans. I think most people would say Godzilla 2014 was legitimately engaging while Bryan Cranston's character was there, because his desperation to uncover a conspiracy and gain closure for his wife's death was compelling. Until he slips and falls out of the movie, replaced by Lieutenant Generic and his bewitching sister wife.
What are you doing, step-bro?
But when the human story is handled with care and executed well, it's possible you won't even notice Godzilla goes missing for decent chunks of time. And I'm happy to say that's the case here with Minus One. Our protagonist is deeply sympathetic, being someone who feels he's being punished for succumbing to fear. He's also overcome with grief and an undying feeling of shame for various reasons I won't spoil yet. He's looked down upon by his former community and, for the most part, his fellow countrymen as a whole. He begins to see Godzilla as a sort of curse, I think, and unfortunately develops a sense of responsibility for the monster's actions. He's overcome with fear and has PTSD nightmares every single night, but in the end becomes singularly focused on redeeming himself. But whether or not that's even possible in the eyes of Japan, or himself, is in question. He's a character that's so easy to root for, it's hard to imagine anyone would find his story boring. Unless you just have zero tolerance for reading subtitles or something like that. There's been multiple accounts of Minus One moving people to tears, and I can see why. This is an incredibly emotional journey. I didn't cry though. I'm dead inside. As for Godzilla, this is the most vicious he's been in quite a while. Shin Godzilla was terrifying, but it was always very clear that his destructive actions were just him lashing out in pain and confusion as he continuously mutated into bigger and deadlier forms, like a G-virus experiment gone awry. Meanwhile, this Godzilla just seems to outright hate humanity and operate on sheer bloodlust. He's not feeding on us, he just wants to kill as many of us as he can find, and he's very good at it. I've heard some complaints about the quality of CGI throughout this movie, and at least on my first watch, nothing really stuck out to me. I was fully immersed and captivated by its story, and while the special effects aren't as realistic as the recent American Godzilla and King Kong movies, it's by no means bad. Hell, this movie had a budget of less than $15 million, and looks far better than any overly expensive Marvel movie or streaming series from the last 5 or 6 years. But hey, we do know Hollywood loves to waste money and resources. Just to really drive home this point, what you're seeing on the left was far cheaper to produce than what's on the right. Let that sink in for a moment. This is where I'd list my wonderful patrons. If I had any. Okay, it's time. Spoilers a go-go, baby! Our main character is a Japanese soldier named Koichi Shikishima, a young man who has been forced to become a kamikaze pilot to die for his country. He's not exactly cool with the whole explosive nosedive thing, however, and he fakes mechanical trouble so he can land his plane for repairs on Odo Island and give himself some time to think. He carries with him a letter from his parents, one which asks him to come home alive. For those worried that you won't see Godzilla until halfway through this movie, put those fears to rest. G-Dog's first scene comes within the first 10 minutes as he emerges on Odo Island, though this isn't quite what you'd expect. This Godzilla is pretty small initially, around the size of a T-Rex in Jurassic Park, with hunchback posture and a raging hate boner for the soldiers stationed there. He attacks and corners the men, though our man Koichi has a chance to hop in his plane and lay waste to this more vulnerable Godzilla with his mounted machine guns. He has the beast literally within his sights, fully capable of delivering a horizontal rain of lead into its skull. But he freezes. And flees. Only Koichi and one other man survive that night. That right there is an incident that scars Koichi for life. A group of men, most of them with families, died because he was too afraid to take a chance and challenge the monster. And I don't blame him. I can't overstate how fiercely aggressive Godzilla is in this opening scene. Things only get worse for him when he returns home to Tokyo, only to see it completely leveled from being firebombed before World War II ended, taking the lives of his parents and countless others. He's reunited with a surviving neighbor who is very briefly happy to see Koichi, until she realizes he can only be alive if he abandoned his duty as a kamikaze pilot. Not only does she feel utter disgust toward him for those actions, but she immediately blames Koichi, and others like him, for the destruction of Tokyo, saying her children would still be alive if not for him. This is an attitude that would be carried by most in Japan, and so he's not exactly welcomed home. All because he was chosen to sacrifice his own life and instead wanted to live, just to be treated like garbage by those around him. And the thing of it is, this movie isn't preachy. It's far more nuanced than damn near anything being churned out by the lopsided American movie industry. It doesn't demonize Koichi, nor people like his neighbor. It merely presents the fact that people with these opposing views existed. The script is even-handed in its portrayal, highlighted even more when the aforementioned neighbor goes on to become an important figure in the lives of Koichi and his newfound family in the coming years. Because yes, he does find a new purpose for his life. He reluctantly takes in an orphaned young woman named Noriko, and a baby named Akiko, who she rescued. And while he's adamant that they can only stay for one night, his big heart ultimately relents. One night turns into 3, then 2 weeks, a few months, and before you know it, they become a family who stays together for years. And you just want to cheer them on, man, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. That little girl openly calls them mommy and daddy because they're the only parents she's ever had, but Koichi and Noriko aren't really a romantic pairing. They clearly want to be. In practice, they treat each other like any husband and wife would day to day, but emotionally, he can't open up to her. He can't bring himself to tell her that he abandoned his honor in the war. And he also can't talk about that insane creature he encountered and the men who died because of his fear, the reasons he wakes up screaming in the middle of the night. But he wants to care for them in any way that he can, even taking on a well-paying but extremely dangerous job on a minesweeper boat to help provide them a better life, gaining newfound courage because of just how much they mean to him. And it goes great for a while. Koichi is very good at his job, and his crew become great friends. Slowly but surely, he's able to use that money to rebuild his parents' home and even buy a vehicle. But as fortunate as that job has been, it's also what leads to him reliving his worst nightmare. He encounters Godzilla again, but it's changed. Grown and mutated far beyond its initial size and power, capable of destroying massive naval ships in seconds, using only its raw strength. And the scene where Koichi's crew try to outrun Godzilla in this tiny little wooden boat isn't just one of the most intense scenes in the entire Godzilla franchise, but also one of the best chase sequences I've ever witnessed, period. It so clearly pays homage to Jaws, but on a much larger and more terrifying scale. The crew have only a single machine gun and a couple of scavenged sea mines to battle a big-ass kaiju, and this is the first time I found myself literally on the edge of my seat in a theater. And it's here when we discover alongside them that this Godzilla is one of the most formidable iterations of the creature. It has the ability to heal from grievous wounds near instantaneously, like some of you may be used to seeing with Wolverine or Deadpool. And things only get crazier from here. That's as far as I want to get into spoilers. There's a reason this movie is performing well above expectations. It's just freaking great, man. And if you haven't seen it yet, but think I've spoiled too much now, well, I've barely even covered the first half of the movie. It's a ride. I really can't recommend this enough. Even if you're not typically a Godzilla fan or a monster movie fan, don't think of it like one. It's the kind of movie where if you want to view it that way, you can, because there's more than enough Godzilla for that. But you can also just view it as a drama, with well-written characters that you really grow to care about. But that's all I got for you guys today. I'm Baffled, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!